Good to see everybody here this morning. I thought the sunshine was great, but I see all these smiling faces, and it helps to work on me, to encourage me, and hopefully I'll get the clicker and the other thing, get it all under one situation where you can all see and read it, and then we're talking about it at the same time. Let me just kind of see if I can get that. That's not where it wants to be. It's got an on and off button on it or anything. Like I say, I'm still working the bugs. They're not working the bugs out. I'm working the bugs out of my delivery. Part of the lesson is, why are we losing so many young people? I'm glad to see so many young people in here today, even more than was last week maybe, and I'm glad to see you all here. See the Allens again, and I know Liam's away at school, and that's probably a concern. Not just because it's Liam. I'm just simply saying, because anybody's away from school, and you can't monitor them, you can't see them. See if I can. Well, that's blacking out like. One of the reasons is people as young people, they lose interest in spiritual matters. And another reason why? Because there's so much material, worldly things that are just almost smothering them. Everybody knows about peer pressure. When you think about when young people go to school, they're leaving their home, mom and dad, and they say, they can't see me here. I can do whatever I want. And that's true. And that's why we need to train our children. Proverbs 22, verse 1 says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he'll not depart from it. That's a general statement. I know plenty of people who trained up their children and they went wrong somewhere. It wasn't because of their training, it's just that they decided they wanted to do something different. And they decided that it wasn't important for them to do what sorry, I got to kind of do two things here. They pull away. They become distant because they want to spend time with their friends. And their friends don't want to be around your mom and dad. And because of that, because, if your mom and dad like to go to church, to worship is the better word. If you go to worship and you think, well, they're just a bunch of old stuff shirts, they're just all, holier than thou and all those kinds of things that people say. I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and I love all of them. But they're all different. And as they were growing up, there were things that we tried to address, at different times. When we would go in a car, I'd point out different things and kind of not necessarily make a sermon out of it, but kind of a lesson. And I do that with television. I mentioned this last week. Little House on the Prairie, man, it's just full of stuff that you can learn about people who are spiritually minded, and then again, the way some people tend to manifest that by when they go to worship. I know John Walton always said, I can worship God on the creek bank. That's true. But the Bible also teaches a command to assemble together. In Acts chapter 20, that Billy quoted twice there, he just says, and upon the first day of the week when the disciples came together to break bread. Why'd they go there? Because they took of the Lord's Supper, or partook of the Lord's Supper, I should say. They were there to do that. They were to share a common interest in being with people of like precious faith. You think their kids were there? I believe they were. You got Blake and Logan here, and he's got a problem. Girlfriend. No, 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 no. Or you're a girl. Are you a friend? Your girlfriend. So just tease, just tease. I don't want to embarrass her or anything like that. She's a pretty young lady, and and Logan, you dumb. If she's not your girlfriend, you're doing something wrong. Anyway, um, just kidding, because I know them for years, since they were pups, and sometimes people they say, well, I don't feel like going today. They make up some excuse not to go, or whatever. They stop attending. They say, why do we go? Why do we have to go back on Sunday? Why do we have to do that? See, if you worship here, we don't have a Sunday evening service. One point in our direction, right? You're going a good thing, right? So, I think about what else could pull them away, and that is dating. Engaged, and they marry a non-Christian. What's wrong with that? There's really nothing wrong with that. Here's why I think that. My wife married a non-Christian. I was a good guy, I thought, wasn't terrible, anything like that, but she married a non-Christian. About a year and a half later, I obeyed the gospel. Look where I'm at now. My mother-in-law even likes me. And so, I think about these things. There are things that take us away. They get involved. Then as they get involved with alcohol and drugs, because they're hanging out with these friends, and maybe you don't like their friends. You got to understand that there's something that draws them to those friends. And like I say, this lesson is for young people in this audience, but also forever, for life. What can we do? It's not uncommon for young people to like to do these things. It's not. That's just the way they are. You remember when they were between 2s and 3s? How many times you want to wring their neck? Not really. Yeah. You want to just say, quit doing that. I just told you that 5 minutes ago. Quit doing that. Quit doing that. Quit doing that. And it's like they're pushing to your envelope. They want to see what they can get away with. And I know that. And the easiest way they get away with stuff is like Dad says, no, you can't go, and you go to Mom. Don't you? Go to Mom. You try to pit Mom against Dad. And, well, hey, Dad, Mom said I can go. Oh, did she? And then you go talk to Mom. You don't discuss, argue. So, I don't know what in the world she's thinking. You don't want to do that. We, as a preacher, you get involved with things in the church, and sometimes there are things that don't go the way you really want them to, and when we had discussions, we never discussed those things in front of our kids. Because we didn't want them to get an idea about the church as being, well, they're just a bunch of hypocrites and yahoos and doing what they want to do and that kind of thing. I didn't want that. I want my children to know what the real church is about. And I find that in the Bible, right? And so, when they get involved with other things, we as parents need to watch those things. Keep an eye on them. One of the things I learned in thinking about parenting, go in their room. I'm not telling you to rifle through their drawers or anything like that, I just say go in the room. See the things that they value. Now, I don't know any teenage kids got a big picture of Jesus. I mean, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the other things, like whether it's if it's I'm really going back like 50 Cent or 50 Cent or somebody else, or maybe even that girl. Taylor's. I heard somebody call her Trailer Swift, but that was a pejorative statement. But anyway, Taylor Swift, yeah. And there's a lot. I mean, she's a billionaire because young people like her music. It's not for me. That's okay. I don't mind if it's on the radio. I still listen to it, but I don't. My wife won't let me put up any posters in the bedroom. Just not allowed to do that. I can't put a poster of Taylor Swift in the bedroom. She just wouldn't like that, or any other female for that matter. So even after how long have we been? 46 years. It'll be 46 years in April. And so I don't do that because I don't want to upset her. I love her. I want to respect her. And our children need to understand those things. That's something that they need to do as well. Well, ultimately, we lose them to the world. Why? Because either you're going to teach them or the world's going to teach them. Somebody's going to teach them. And why not you do it in a loving and compassionate way? I think about my own, maybe too many eyes. I got eye problems. But I think about raising my own children. I have experience in doing that. We never had to tell our children on Sunday morning, get up, get dressed, and go to worship. Never had to do that. They knew that's where we go on Sunday morning. We don't go to the class reunion. We don't go to a reunion at the factory or if they're a Christmas party that afternoon. Or we don't go to those things. Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong to do it. I'm just simply we can't sacrifice the worship time for those other activities. They have to see us. They talk about non-gender specific parenting and that kind of thing. Like boys kind of tend to gravitate toward mothers and girls tend to gravitate toward their fathers. And what I'm saying is simply this. You are their role model. You don't want anybody else to be their role model. They can have sports fans and, and follow those kind of things. You can do that, but you have to be careful. It was real easy to lose them to the world. Now, I tell parents all the time, like I have toddlers, like 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds, I say, don't blink. You want to say that? See, I remember their oldest. I remember when he was born. We just came to Warren's at that time, around that time. And I'm like, he's in college, huh? Don't blink because they're driving a car. You blink, they're seeing someone, and it can happen so fast. And we think, what happened to all these things? All right. There's a passage I talked about. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he'll not depart. That's a general statement. Like I said, that doesn't work for everybody. It's just that's what the Bible talks about that we should be doing. It's a general principle. I went by. It suggests that there's more than one reason why people depart. There's tons of reasons. And maybe somebody had a bad experience when they were a kid at Bible class or something like that, and somebody kind of got down their throat or something like that. People aren't perfect. But we have to be careful because those activities can scar our children. I like Dr. Phil. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do like listening to him. He has some really good advice. So I think about knowing why our children we're losing them may help prevent losing more. And if anything, and I look for a biblical example. Look at Noah, preacher of righteousness, 120 years. He wasn't much of a preacher, was he? Only saved him and 7 others in 120 years. But you know what? That was his family. He saved his family. And you want to do that. You want to provide a nurturing environment in your house that the children want to be there. My mother had it that way. All the kids in the neighborhood wanted to come at my house all the time. My mother loved it because she'd fix them snacks and all kinds of stuff. She was just a wonderful person. I must get this from my dad. She was such a wonderful person. But we've got to understand, and understanding this, or understanding why people do things, and why do they break away? Because bad influences. And we're going to give some warnings about that here in just a second. Proverbs chapter 1 warns us about it. Proverbs 12 warns us. Proverbs 22 warns us as well. Kind of moves through these. Some of them spend a lot more time in other areas. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Bad communication corrupts good manners. And you know what I'm talking about when I say bad communication? The way people talk. And the way they talk, are like the world. So I'm going through some of these. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Anyway, every other slide seems like every other. Okay. All of these passages warn us about what can happen Going down the road, you've probably heard an illustration like it. Going down the road, see bridge is out, detour, turn around. Which one of y'all keeps going driving? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Keep on driving. I don't care. You think it's Dukes of Hazzard, they go over that river. you think you're that doesn't work in the real world. That's a fantasy. Warnings also tells us the power of friendship. Make sure you know who your kids' friends are, because I'll tell you what, a lot of them are going to be posers. You know what that means? They're going to pretend they're something they're not, just so you'll let them hang out with your son or your daughter. We may or not see it, but we've got to be interested in finding out about who our children hang out with. But how does all this happen? It happens, they gradually drift. I've been in a boat before, in a river. You're sitting there, maybe you're fishing or swimming or whatever you're doing, but you sit in a boat, and if you were sitting in a boat, looking at your phone, if you get a signal, looking at your phone, all of a sudden you look up, where are you? You were up there, now you're down here. It's the same way spiritually. Sometimes we're not cognizant of how far we've drifted. And so we always need to keep our children in the loop of understanding about biblical things, spiritual things. If there's youth rallies to go to, this weekend there's something called CYC, Challenge Youth Conference in Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area. And last year I think there was maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people went. And then I see videos of them, and they have kids all together, young people all together and singing. Hard to sin when you're singing a spiritual song. Talking about God's love, it's hard to sin then. So the idea is that if they gradually drift, and then they get desensitized to sin, things don't bother them. They see things on TV, and they think, well, that's not a big deal, right? And we hear a lot of cursing. Of course, I always called it cussing. A lot of cursings in there, and I saw a TV show, and I said, if we had one of those video angel things that blocks out all the cursing, there wouldn't be any dialogue. It's like, eat, walk, and go. That's about how it'd be. Because they're throwing F-bombs and everything else that's coming out of their mouth. And so we have to be careful, because children absorb things whether we understand it or not. You say, well, hey, she didn't hear that or he didn't hear that. Sure they did. I've seen 5-year-olds in this auditorium, not this auditorium, other auditoriums, that could tell you what Preacher Paul just said. We've got to be understanding in that and know that there are so many things in the world that is going to destroy them, and certainly will destroy them, like pressure to do things. And pressure mounts when you're outnumbered. I've told people over the years, I said, listen, your son or daughter is probably going to go to a get-together or maybe a birthday party, and they're all downstairs and mom and dad's upstairs or, doing something else. And somebody pulls out some weed, marijuana, what do you call it, grass. In Jamaica, it's called ganja. And, so I pull out something like that. What are you going to do? Young people, what are you going to do? Some will say, well, my parents won't let me touch that stuff. And they say, yeah. Then you get starting to the jeers about, yeah, you do what your parents and your little mommy told you couldn't do that. That's a lot of pressure. So here's what I'm telling you today. Decide right now, right where you are. I'm doing Dr. Phil again. This is a safe place to talk about hard things. And while you're here right now, decide you're not going to do that. You're just going to say, no, I don't want it. Even when somebody says, calls you a name or a whim, or you're just a baby, or you know how that is. And that stuff's, that's tough. It's very hard to deal with, particularly as a young person. You want to be accepted. The worst thing for a teenager is to think they're abnormal. That's why we have our hair cut the way it is. And the worst day in their life, of a girl's life, is get up and see a zit right there between the eyes. They're like, ah, I gotta go. Everybody sees that. They think I'm a cyclops. All these things. They see that, and a lot of people probably don't even pay attention, but you know it because you're concerned about what other people think about you. You want to be called, hey, zithead, or something similar to that, or even worse. We don't want to do that. You need to understand that there's times we're going to make decisions. We need to do it right here and decide that because we can easily become like them. You know why it is, parents? Acceptance. When it pulls out a beer, pass it to you, and you say, oh, no, that's not my brand. No. You say, no, I don't want that. I don't want alcohol. Marijuana, alcohol, those are both gateway drugs to harder and tougher things. So we've got to be understanding that our children are bombarded with this stuff. And that when they come home, we nurture them and show them love, whether it's say, hey, I love you, how's your day, that kind of stuff, grab you and hug you. I'm a hugger, and I like to hug, but in the further south, they call it hug my neck. You ever heard of that? Hug my neck. And, so we have to understand how hard, how tough it is for them to do what they do. And the other thing, and I had several more of these points, I'll do them next week. Poor example of their parents. Remember what I said? I said either you're going to teach them or the world's going to teach them. It's up to you. And I'm telling you, that is on your shoulders. God requires that of you. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1 to 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. People don't like to obey. They rather like to disobey. I don't want to do that. I told you about what we did with our kids, when they were young, about doing household chores. Somebody had the kitchen. Somebody had the living room and the den. The other person had the 2 bathrooms. They did it for a whole year. A whole year. January 1st, boy, they're not just celebrating New Year's. They're celebrating getting out of the kitchen or wherever they don't like. And my son had the kitchen. He was 8 years old. And it was so funny watching it because it's like, my oldest daughter, Micah, she's probably about 4 years older than him. And she said, she bring a plate. He said, you better rinse that off and then put that in the dishwasher. 8-year-old, you better rinse that off. It was high voice. It was so funny because he was like, that's my domain. This is where I work. You're not going to come in and mess it up. And like I say, dancing in the streets come January 1st because everybody got to change. Well, sometimes a poor example of our parents is we do things that we know we're not supposed to do. And our kids see that. And I talked about, arguing with your wife or husband, and don't let them see that. Go in another room. Even if you have to lock the door or something, go somewhere else. And the poor example of their parents certainly is that they see everything. Young people learn what they see. I just remember something I used to say this all the time. Young people are our little mirrors. Little mirrors. Because they reflect back everything we do and say. And it's like, well, Dad, I heard you say the other day, blah, 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 blah. And Mom said, Mom, boy, she just went off the deep end or whatever. I have to understand there again, our children are bombarded every day till they're not. Till they're maybe in their mid-20s. That sounds like a long time, but I'll tell you what, you get out of, if you're 18 and you go to college, man, you're in a big mix. Remember this example. Some guy goes, let's say he goes to David Lipscomb University or Freehart or wherever. And they say, well, we're going to send him to a Christian college. We want them to find a Christian mate. And the guy, he says, yeah. He said, by the way, this is my girlfriend. Bring it home. And she's a Muslim. Because Muslims go there. Hindus go there. People from outside the United States, because those are private schools. It's very hard for them to get into a state school. So they go into private schools first, get a GPA, and then transfer to wherever, NC State or wherever. And you think, where did I go wrong? I sent them there, I sent my daughter there so she'd get an MRS degree. Mrs. Just helping you out. The MRS degree, right? There are general principles. Matthew chapter 5 talks about that. He who hungers and thirsts after righteousness will be fed. Make sure you're feeding your children, not just every day, whatever meals they need to have, but also spiritual food. And find different ways to approach a subject. What are you doing in school? Well, we're doing biology. Uh-oh. Things like that. So we have to understand that our children become like our parents. They become them. You've seen the little commercials. It's like, we're trying to teach adults, not to be like their parents. Said, oh, I'm going to help do that. No, you don't need. He doesn't need help. I'm going to help him fix it. No, he doesn't need help fixing it. Let him do it himself. Because we tend to become our parents unless we're taught otherwise. So if your parents are not giving you the best example, that's what your children are going to be. Somebody came to me one time. She was mother, and she had a 15-year-old daughter. And she said, we came to go to worship this morning. She took off running down the street. And I know the family, known for, at that time, 5 or 6 years. And I said, every time that girl stands up and goes to the bathroom, her dad gives her $5. That was way back. I said, what I told her, I said, she's 15. The time to start when she's 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. But I said, Dr. Frankenstein, that's the monster you created. So don't be so alarmed and say, I don't know what happened to her. Well, you didn't put it into her. It didn't work for her. He said, well, I gave her clothes and I did this. And see, I love my children. We're all friendly and everything like that. But I was not their friend. I was their parent. I was friendly to them when they were growing up because I wanted them to see and know and understand what it is, or what a Christian is like. But when you become their friend and their confidant, you're starting on a losing game. Nothing wrong with being friendly. Nothing wrong with being. You have to be interested in your kid's life. We tend to end up, like I say, becoming like our parents, and so actions speak louder than words. There's what you say, but then when they see what you do, you get up a day and you're supposed to go, oh, I can't make it today. I just don't feel well. I told people that. I said, well, somebody said that they didn't come to a Wednesday night. I said, oh, I'm sorry you're feeling bad. She said, well, I just didn't feel good. I said, well, I get it. And I understand, believe me that. And I said, I'm glad Jesus wasn't ill when he was dragging that cross up the hill. I'm glad he didn't have I just feel like, I can't go today. Or I got something wrong, or my big toe, hurts or something. Now like, Cary Graham, he's got an eye problem more than I got an eye problem. He has an eye, he scratched something in his eye or something like that, and he's got medicine. And I was telling his wife, Cindy, I said, well, what's the big deal? I said, he's got another one. Yeah. Of course, I was joking. He's got another one. But that's a serious thing. Vision is really important. I've had cataracts taken off both eyes, and even though I drive a Toyota and a Ford, I had cataract. Gonna let that sink in a second, sir. But anyway, we've got to understand that when children decide for themselves they're not going to do this and they're not going to do that, maybe it's because you haven't taught them. Well, they didn't go to Bible class, didn't go on Sunday night, they didn't go on Wednesday night because there's something going on, there's a ball game or something that I had to be at. And I understand that. I understand sports, and because I played sports all the time when I was younger. Like I said, it's a lot when you don't feel good. You see, I talk about being 67. I'm proud of being 67. I really am. I didn't think I'd get past 60. I'd be dead somewhere. And so, my mom died at 53. My dad died at 59. I ain't got a chance of making 60, right? It was from different things. But I think there's times I don't feel good. And I go, every time when you go, like in school, if you don't feel good, I'm going to school today. And somebody says, well, do you got a test today or something? No. When you go, guess what happens? You feel better. You feel better when you go. And so that's very important for us. We're here even if we don't feel good. We're here, and we're not talking about serious illness, something like that. You got COVID or something like that. We're not talking about that. So we have to be determined to serve God. I hope you don't think I was all over the place in this lesson. I really was trying to focus on, but sometimes like with clicking this and clicking that, it kind of throws me off a little bit. But if you took away anything from this, how important are your children? How important are your grandchildren? They're important, aren't they? Don't let Satan have them. Put up a fight. In the Bible class, we talk about perseverance. Don't quit. Don't give up. People do this. Well, I can't get him or I can't get her to do anything. I'm just throwing in the towel. I'm throwing my hands up. It's tough being a parent. Tough being a kid or a young person. That's not an ugly term, say kid. But the idea is, your parents, they really love you. They don't always make the right decisions. They make mistakes just like everybody else, but they've got about 20 years experience on you. They know about stuff. They know, well, I'm just going over to this party for, who is this? Where you going? Have I ever met them? Things like that. And they know, because they've done things. They were young and dumb, just like all of us were at one point. And I don't want to overuse that word, but I'm simply saying this. We make a lot of mistakes as young people and as parents. But God's going to hold us all accountable. Hold us all accountable for what we do. You know, there's a remedy for sin. The Bible tells us that. It's being baptized to have your sins washed away. It talks about no other way of getting rid of sin, the only way by being washed. Revelation 1:7 says, we are washed in his blood. How are we done? How are we washed in blood? I've been washed in blood. It's metaphorical. The baptistry behind me is warm. If somebody needs to be baptized this morning, we can certainly do that. But what it does is baptism washes away sin. That's the prime thing. And the best thing about it is, Acts chapter 2, verse 47 says, the Lord adds you to the church. There's no application. There's no application fee. Anything like that. The Lord adds you to the church. That's the best blessing about it. Because as we understand, and we're willing to work, and we're willing to do what God wants us to do, that's a decision we all have to make. If you're here this morning, we can help you in any way, whether you need to be baptized or for whatever reason. We're here to fulfill all your spiritual needs. And if it might be from somewhere else, some other time, let us know while together we stand and say.